the program is going on. You are free to keep your videos on if you want to, according to your preference. So welcome to the second episode of Sunday Samvad that MITIS is organizing. So before we begin, I would like to tell you something about MITIS. So MITIS is a student-led initiative from students from all the 4 campuses of TIS, and we have 5 main initiatives. We have a student blog, which is a platform for the students and by the students. We have just impact stories which TIS has brought about change. We are also focused on career guidance and bringing opportunities to TIS students. We also function to provide information about TIS to aspirants and the people of TIS. We also have TIS. We also function to bring about campus news from students of all the 4 campuses at one place. On the second episode of Sunday Samvad, which is an initiative that is being organized by TIS MITIS from the last week, we have with us 3 very special panelists. We have Ms. Nikhata Ranpal and Bakul Dabe, who is the manager of Global Partnership, and Abraham N. James, the manager of Outgoing Mobility from the International Relations Office of Mumbai. Ms. Nikhata Ranpal is pursuing her double masters in international relations and international communications from Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia. She is a TIS Tuljapur alumni, and she is the key speaker today to talk to us about higher studies abroad. We also have Bakul Dabe and Abraham and James from the International Relations Office in Mumbai. They are here to talk to us about the office and its main activities, as well as to inform us about the opportunities that are available for outgoing students and the options that they can explore. So before we begin, I would just like to tell you the structure of today's program. We'll begin with the first session will be conducted by Ms. Nikhata Ranpal, who will be talking about the opportunities and challenges of going abroad and about the do's and don'ts, how to build your resume and everything else that you might potentially expect from today's session. After that session, we'll be moving on to Ma'am Bakul Dabe and Sir Abraham James for the information about International Relations Office. Then in the third session would be conducted by Aditi Sade. She'll be talking to us about, she'll be doing the question and answer session. We've received an overwhelming number of questions from the Google Forms itself. So we'll be addressing those questions first. And then if time permits, we'll be moving on to the other questions. So I would like to welcome all the 3 panelists on behalf of the entire MITIS team. And over to you, Ms. Nikhata, ma'am, to start today's session.
Thank you for that introduction. Honestly, you said some really heavy words. I don't know if all of that is fine, but honestly, I didn't really think with I didn't go with the intention of I want to go abroad. I remember I was just sitting in the CC, when everybody was doing their dissertation for the final year. All my friends, they started applying for colleges left, right, center. They applied for Delhi University, they applied for JNU and Azim Premchand, then you have all the other colleges. And I was like, I don't know what to apply. And I, for one, did not even know what I was interested in. And these guys knew, okay, they're interested in this area, they're interested in public policy, they're interested in, in fashion, some of them. So they knew what path to take, and some of them were interested in environmental studies and stuff like that. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to apply for colleges everywhere. So I started applying for colleges everywhere. I applied first to India and I applied outside as well. And I think one of the most important aspects to remember is that when you shouldn't apply with the intention of I want to go abroad. I think you decide on what you want to do. In fact, when I applied to all of them and after post my dissertation, I realized that, okay, I'm interested in communication with your whole dissertation process. I think that's a very good thing that TIS provides you with. It's like a self-realization time where you learn a lot about yourself. And I realized that I wanted to do communication and media, and I'd applied to a lot of universities. then you realize that you can't just apply to so many universities. You have to narrow down your choices, because the lot of expenses, even if you're not going to the college, there is the expense of the application process and all these nitty-gritties which finally add up. So I got into a couple of colleges, and then deciding on how you decide your college, I think it depends on, of course it depends on what you want to do, but I think what you should also keep in mind is how will you adjust. You have to look into accounts of safety issues, of the diversity that the college has, and things like, also I think I saw some of the questions that Aditi sent to me were about people asking which college should you decide on, or which is the best college for a so and so course. Honestly, you are the best judge there. You are the best person to research on that. Even your education agent, whoever you have, who's going to help you, they will not be able to tell you which college to go to. They will give you a list of colleges. You have to decide on that. See, the maximum I think we can do is we decide on the course we want. You decide which country is best for that. Let's say mental health. So the mental health is best in Denmark. And then you go to Denmark, you see the country, you see the laws there. What's also important is you see your laws post academics. What are the laws what are the rights you have post academics, and what are the rights you have while as a student? Because it's important to support yourself also. You come into a different nation, you might as well embrace in the culture, and the culture it's important that you support yourself. And to support yourself, it's important that you do some part-time work or something. So it's important to pay attention to that again. And apart from that, again, deciding on the college, once you've decided the country, you can, shortlist the colleges that you want. See, this is the course that I want to do, and A, B, and C offer these colleges in these countries. Then you go through the curriculum of each of the courses that is offered in these courses. You see how the assessment is. You see if you like it, and then you go for it. Now, your education agent is not going to tell you. You have to also remember that they get their money, which is based on commission. So they will tell you colleges which is best for them also. They might say, I'm not saying they're not going to give you the best option, but they will also have a personal intention there. So, and you are the best judge, right? You are going there. And I think some of the most important factors to consider, apart from that also, is that, when you, again, with this whole COVID thing, it's you have the advantage of overseas learning. And now that everything is virtually, you can sit in India, you can apply for colleges abroad, and you can still get that degree. But for those of you who intend to apply later on, I think you have to look at issues like how can you network with that country, allow you for networking. You have to look at the language. I think language is one of the most important aspects. Countries like Europe, are very good. I mean, when it comes to education, their educational institutions are premium, and they're not very expensive also. But many of them teach in their vernacular language. So that becomes a drawback. But if for one, you know the language, like if you know French or if you know German, you should definitely go and do that, because you have no drawback there, right? And all these different countries, while you're deciding on the countries, you also have to see which exam you're giving. So these days, so you have IELTS and you have GRE and all these other exams that you have. I gave the IELTS, so which has, you have your basic English, math, which involves your reading, writing, and listening abilities. Also, I got my scholarship through the IRO department, so Abraham was very helpful there. And I would suggest that I didn't do this. I feel like I should have done this when I was in TIS, in my bachelor's, is that there's so many exchange programs that are offered. Honestly, there's so many universities that we have partnered with. You should try and immerse yourself in that, try and get involved in that. Even if you don't go abroad, when an exchange student comes to your college, engage with them, try and understand how things work in their university. And, and try and help them adapt to your ways. And while you are trying to help them adapt to your ways, you're also helping yourself adapt to their ways. So when you go outside, it's easier for you. There's this, I was just reading a couple of things, and then I saw that, they say that, going abroad is like a terrifying change. Now, that could be like a good thing, or it could be a bad thing. Like, it's like, are you willing to take up that change? It's basically that. And with how many of, I didn't really honestly want this like me talking and you guys just listening. So if you guys have any questions, please, or if you want to say anything, please feel free to just unmute yourself. You don't even have to show your, video and all. You can just shoot questions. But yeah, I think how many of you are looking forward to studying abroad or going overseas, but are held back because of this COVID situation?
Okay, I had some plans related to media and communication, as you have mentioned already. So, but because of COVID-19 and all, I was in a dilemma that will I get scholarships, or will it be safe to go to another country where I'll be an international student, so I might not be their first priority if things get worse. So yeah, that was a dilemma.
Yeah, see, they're actually, like, if you're looking at scholarships, there are three kinds of scholarships that you have. Okay, so you've got a need-based scholarship, which is based on if you can prove. So this happens when you're applying for your visa and all of that. You have to prove that you are economically not capable of supporting yourself. And of course, academic grades are important, but then again, you're competing with your income group. And then you've got the merit-based scholarship, which is based on your academic grades, along with your internships, your experiences, your work experiences that you have had, or the papers that you've written. And then you've got something called a special special scholarship, which is based completely on, there's a very slim chance to get it, but it is very possible. It's for people who have a phenomenal overall resume, but then they fall short on the academic grades. Or, or you have some disability problems or something like that. And you have lots of providers of these scholarships that you have if you're looking for. If you want to look at scholarships, look at governments of your country, the Indian governments, the scholarship they provide, and also the governments to the country that you're going to, they also provide. Even if you look at the location, if you look at the location of your university where it's located, the local government in that area, some of them also support it. So you have to look around there. The Indian government has a lot of scholarship, honestly. It's just that the site is a little, how the Indian sites are. It's very difficult to maneuver your way around. But figure out a way there. Sit down. I'll honestly tell you, take one day and dedicate it to looking for scholarships. I guarantee you will find it. There are a lot of people also who are willing to be your donors, and you have these sponsors. You also have some, so if you're, you can also go to a lot of CSR companies. They are also willing to invest in you. So I think, yeah, scholarship, for that scholarship, you have these people who will help you. Apart from that, with COVID, the concern that you were saying, I think you can still do overseas. You can still study overseas by being in your country. Of course, the experience won't be as much, but it is a step. A lot of people also say that take a gap year now with all of this is happening. You can try next year, but honestly, you're cutting down so much on finances right now, because if you're at home, the only money that you're paying is tuition fees. And for some of the colleges, even they are providing these virtual classes over Zoom without any fees or at half the price. And you're cutting down on your living expenses, your rent, your food, your travel, and all of that. And so if you build up there, I think this is the lockdown period is actually a very good period to hone your skills, to find out what you want to do. You can enroll in so many courses, and you are not limited by your geographical location. You can still do courses, and when things get better, you can take the plunge and you go abroad, or you go wherever you want. And in this period of lockdown, you've already set your mark for yourself, because you're studying overseas, or you're doing things outside your country, right? And and while you're doing all of this, it's very important to make human connections and make relations. I think that is one of the most important things to help you grow anywhere, especially when you move abroad. I think you become your own person. You're entirely responsible for yourself, and it's important to formulate that network, to have your own base or that circle, not just for that emotional support, but also in professional life, to push you and to challenge you to do better. And I think that's one of the most important reasons why we all decide to take a step forward. Does that help you answer your question, Aditi?
Yeah, of course, it was really helpful. And yeah, thank you for mentioning the 3 types of scholarships, because I think that will help us to figure out which we might fit in, and then we can go for searching more about it and all. So there was a question, like, how are scholarships different in USA and Europe? Is there any difference or something?
In USA and Europe, honestly, see, I am not the best person to tell you about these specific countries' scholarships. But you can go to the sites of the governments. Like I said, you have different providers of scholarship. You have the Indian government, which provides you a plethora of scholarships. You can check the scholarships from USA and the UK government on what they're providing. The laws might be very strict right now with all that is happening. I suggest UK is a better bet, because I think last year they've just changed their rule. They were not offering a 2-year work visa after your study period. The reason I enrolled in Australia was because post my study period, it gives me a 2-year working period. So that's like a direct bridge that I get with my visa. I don't have to go through the process again. UK did not do that for the longest time. It just started doing that last year. So I think that just opens a lot of options for students in UK, because again, UK just offers a 1-year course. And a lot of people were complaining when they came back from UK that they were not getting jobs in India, because people would do masters from UK and they would come back to India. And in India, a 1-year course is not considered a master's, right? It's considered a diploma. So it wouldn't have that much of value. It's like you spend so much, and then, but now with this new rule, you can actually work in UK, so which has actually become a good thing. But US does not do that. US is still just giving you a study period, and it lets you work. I think if you've done your undergrads and if you've done your postgrads, then it lets you work in the US. Otherwise, it tells you to move back to your home country. And with respect to scholarships, I think the UK government is providing more scholarships than the US. And yeah, and even TIFF, I think TIFF is in partner with a lot of colleges in UK, which I think, which I'm sure Abraham sir can tell you about more in detail about the colleges we are in partner with and the scholarships that are available for TIFF students specifically there.
Okay, so I think for the scholarship part, we can just leave it for now. And as Bakul ma'am and Abraham sir will elaborate about it, we'll have more knowledge. So there were some general questions about how did you actually narrow down your colleges, and how did you consider what exams to appear for? And there is something called SOP writing and resume making and all. So would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, okay. So, for those of you who plan to go abroad and are still studying in college right now, please, honestly, please get as many letter of recommendations as you can, when you work at NRIF, get it from, from the professor in charge, get it from the DD, get it from anybody, everybody. Honestly, you will need it. Trust me, every step of your application process, you will need an LOR. Also, what is another certificate which is very important is that this gives you a certificate that says that, I think it's called the bona fide certificate, if I'm not mistaken, which tells you that the medium of instruction in TIFF was English. So even if you score slightly lower in your IELTS, it just helps you give a little push. So I think that certificate is very important. Keep that handy. Honestly, just keep it handy. In fact, for some colleges, I think in the UK, they don't even take an exam if your university can provide that certificate. So it's a very handy document. Apart from that, I decided this university was, like I said, I applied to a lot of universities in India as well, and then I applied to a lot of colleges in Australia. I applied for Deakin, which is in Melbourne, and then I applied for QIT, which is in Queensland, and then I applied for Macquarie University. And I knew I wanted to do something in media and I want to do something in politics, and I just didn't know how the two of them would fit together. And then I saw this course and I got in, which, and in fact, for Macquarie, I had only applied for international relations. I was like, you know what, media is chill. I'm going to just manage to do I'm going to manage it later. I'll just do a diploma or something like that. And then I saw that we were getting a master's together, and I was like, you know what, if I'm going abroad, I might as well do both together. Who cares? So then I decided that, and I was talking to my director, then our deputy director, then Shubhan sir, and I told him that, I got in through this university and I'm going. And then he was like, you know what, we're actually in partner with the university. Why don't you talk to the IRO department and they'll probably help you with the scholarship. And then he got me in touch with Ibrahim sir. And then I started the whole scholarship process, and then that's when I actually needed my LORs, and I needed the letter from Ibrahim sir to be sent that I need this scholarship and all of that. And and I think your SOP, is I think more than your SOP, your LOR will give you that push. I honestly don't remember the SOP that I'd written, frankly, but then I remember putting a lot of work in my LOR. I had to, if you can, try and get in touch with your teachers back in 11th and 12th grade also, and try and get at least one letter of recommendation from school. I mean, it's not very important, but it's important in the sense that they can see that you've been consistent in your performance and in your dedication of academics and co-curricular activities. And for your SOP, what is very important is that they want to see that you have been, the fact that you've reached the stage of your SOP is because you've cleared your academic credits. Now they want to see that you have a holistic development, that you are also involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. So make sure when you write your SOP, it has a lot of things that say why you want to study that course, and back it up with a lot of extracurricular activities that you've done, the internships that you've done, and why do you want to study that course in terms of, narrate few stuff about your childhood and how, or just who you are as a person. Like that SOP shouldn't be like a black and white paper. It should have a voice. Let it speak. Let it like speak you as a person. A lot of people, and in fact, we've all done it. We, read a lot of other SOPs and stuff like that to get an idea, but that's fair. But don't copy stuff from other SOPs. Let that SOP be you. They want to select you for who you are, right? You want to be selected for who you are. And I think it's important that your letters just reflect that. And I think that's what they want to see.
Okay, thank you, Nikhata. Like, I think you have very easily put things through, and everybody can just take it in, and they know now that you don't have to make a big fuss. Just make sure that you're into the process and try to do everything with ease and try to be original self rather than just copying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think as you have mentioned briefly about the IRO thing, about the scholarships and all. So let's get to Shivakami. She'll introduce us to sir and ma'am, and then we can have a little bit discussion on IRO. And I think then we can take all the questions for you, Nikhata. Is that fine?
Perfect. That sounds lovely.
Okay.